What do Quinn Hughes, Matthew Tkachuk, and Johnny Gaudreau all have in common? They were American superstars playing in Canada who decided to take their talents back down south. In the case of Matthew and Quinn, it was a situation where they essentially said, nah, I'm not staying here in Canada. Screw the red, white, maple leaf country here with the igloos and the polar bears and the maple syrup and the Laffy Taffy. Let's go back down south. I want to stay in the US of A. And now, with conversations on Brady Tkachuk and Austin Matthews potentially filling the same kind of role, we have another challenger who has entered the mix, not from Ottawa, not from Toronto, or Calgary, or Vancouver. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about Connor Hellebuyck, because the guy just had a really fiery post-season interview that dove into his psyche and his thoughts about the way the Winnipeg Jets played this season. Now, it doesn't take a genius to understand just how good Connor Hellebuyck is and has been. He has been a consistent .920 save percentage goaltender over the past 4 years. And that's a pretty big feat when you consider the fact that NHL goal scoring is up, save percentage numbers are down. Hellebuyck also was amazing at the Four Nations and the Olympic Games. Just don't look at the .866 he had in the playoffs last year, or the .870 in the playoffs 2 years ago, or the .886 in the playoffs 3 years ago, or the .895 save percentage in 57 games that he had this year. Connor Hellebuyck went from a guy who literally was the MVP last season to a sub-900 goaltender. And again, he was surrounded by some really strong performances internationally. .956 save percentage and a .118 in the Olympics for Team USA. What a monster. We know he is still capable of being that good. But Connor Hellebuyck ended up having a very candid media availability after the season concluded. And if y'all been following, the Winnipeg Jets, they didn't really do all too hot this year. They finished with a grand total of 82 points in 82 games played, good enough for 26th in the league. And Hellebuyck was not happy with the team's performance. Complacency is not going to get us moving forward. Something's got to happen. To just put the same product on the ice, I don't think it worked for a reason. Here's a tweet from Mike McIntyre. Hellebuyck gave an incredibly raw and emotional year-end interview with us that will not in any way cool off chatter about him possibly wanting to leave the Winnipeg Jets. It was quite something, and incredibly revealing. Quick summary: Connor Hellebuyck fired all kinds of shots at the state of the Jets and how it's difficult for him to see an easy way out of this mess. When I, Mike McIntyre, asked if this would cause him to reconsider his future, there was an extremely long pause. Now, cue the fear-mongering coming over here from Mr. Mike McIntyre, Winnipeg News beat reporter who, of course, has been following the situation for a long time. But, hey, this is a pretty revealing thought. If Connor Hellebuyck, who is currently signed on till the end of 2031 at $8.5 million a year, a really cheap cap hit for a guy that's literally a Hart-caliber player, if he is all of a sudden thinking to himself that, yeah, I don't really know if I want to be here long-term anymore, it does open the door to some potential acquisitions from some other teams. Now, this, of course, is a meme, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what Jamie is going out there and doing. But there's a picture of Connor Hellebuyck with a Panthers jersey. And then you have John Puck who tweeted this out. Imagine if the Panthers traded for an unhappy Hellebuyck now, using their top 10 pick and more. And further to this point, you had Mike McIntyre writing in the Winnipeg Free Press that Connor Hellebuyck sounded like someone who might not be with the Jets for long during his end-of-season media availability on Friday. McIntyre suspected Hellebuyck had emerged from a fiery face-to-face meeting with the coaching staff and management to face the press. The reigning Hart and Vezina Trophy winner called for his club's performance this season, and he said it was unacceptable, wondering where the club would go from here, prompting McIntyre to suggest the answer might involve moving on from the Jets' longtime starting goaltender. When asked by McIntyre if his candid comments might mean some difficult conversations with management about his future, Hellebuyck took several seconds to respond. The goalie said he didn't want to leave any speculation, adding that he loves Winnipeg and loves playing there. McIntyre noted that speculation about Hellebuyck's future began after he backstopped Team USA to Olympic gold in February, drawing some criticism for celebrating at the White House when there are tensions between the US and Canada. Hellebuyck has 5 more years on his contract at a reasonable AAV. McIntyre believes plenty of teams would engage in a bidding war for his services if he became available in the trade market. Moving Hellebuyck would be a seismic shift in the club's direction. So that's a great conversation to have, isn't it? Connor Hellebuyck, one of the best goalies in the league, who had a down season on a down team. He's frustrated with his squad, and there could potentially be some movement here. But all's this to say is that we have yet another name to add to the list of American superstars that could potentially be on their way out of Canada. Dr. Harjosh Gruwal tweeted this out: Matthew Tkachuk soured after being in the playoffs. Quinn Hughes soured 1 year after the playoffs. Now, Matthews and Hellebuyck are saying this 1 year after being cup contenders. Canadian teams really need to evaluate if American stars can be trusted to build around. Again, Matthew Tkachuk demanded out. He said, nah, I'm not signing with y'all here in Calgary. I want to go to St. Louis, I want to go to Dallas, I want to go to Nashville, I want to go to Florida, I want to go anywhere in that southeastern part of the United States of America. Johnny Gaudreau was a free agent, so it's a little different there, but he inevitably just went over to Columbus, which was a big deviation from where we thought he was going to go. Speculation said he would end up in Philly or New Jersey. Quinn Hughes, hey, guess what? The team made the playoffs in 2024. They were really good. But Jim Rutherford said, yeah, as far back as during and after that playoff run, Quinn Hughes wanted to leave. And then Austin Matthews, uncertain about his future. Connor Hellebuyck, uncertain about his future. This really does open another door. It turns over another stone as to these American superstars and whether or not they can be trusted to build around on Canadian franchises. Is Brady Tkachuk next in line? What's up with Kyle Connor in Winnipeg, too? There are some guys, I would say, that did not have this issue. I mean, Jake Sanderson seems to be liking Ottawa. Cole Caulfield seems to be liking Montreal. Lane Hutson's over there with the Habs, too. And then you got some of the guys that aren't super amazing. The Brock Bessers of the worlds. The Thatcher Demkos, too. There are a number of guys that fit the bill and others that don't. But it's so bizarre how right now we're living in an era where there are so many that are coming out roughly around the same time that lead these Canadian teams to having to make very difficult decisions. That's because Canadian teams spend too much time appeasing the wrong segments of their fan base. Okay, we're not going to really believe or disbelieve anything, but I do actually like this point as well. Canadian teams don't win the Stanley Cup is that when American teams lose in the playoffs, they try to acquire more skill in scoring. And when the Canadian teams lose, they go for size and grit that doesn't carry in the playoffs. You know, funnily enough, that actually makes a lot of sense. When the Canucks lost out in the second round a few years ago, how did they respond? They let Zadorov walk, they let Lindholm walk, and then they got Vinny Desharnais and Jake DeBrusk. So, yeah, I honestly do vibe with that idea, to be honest, but we'll see whether or not they actually do follow through in the same pattern. Brian said Austin Matthews didn't say anything bad, and the quote everyone is passing around was dramatically taken out of context, and in fact, Matthews said the Leafs can win and be competitive. Yeah, Austin and Hellebuyck aren't the exact same, but obviously you would prefer to hear full commitment from your captain. So, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Connor Hellebuyck, a long-term Jet? Yay or nay? Is he that guy to help this team get back to the promised land? Or is he going to be another one of these frustrated individuals that finds himself asking out and going somewhere to I don't know, potentially Florida. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this British Irish Roll 99, and bye.